Today I wanted to talk about Dejounte Murray. This is a guy here who has really taken on the role of being the number one option and clearly the best player on the San Antonio Spurs this year, and he's really broken out. Not a lot of people are talking about it. This is a guy here who I think is definitely in the conversation to be a top 30 player in the NBA right now, probably about a top 8 point guard, and definitely in the conversation to be an all-star for this season. The West guards is an absolutely stacked position, so he probably won't get in, but I think if there are a couple of injury spots that could be replaced, I think Dejounte should definitely be one of those guys to replace those spots and potentially make the all-star team as a reserve this season. He's really broken out this year. He's nearly averaging a triple-double and playing amazing defense, and today I'm going to go in-depth and analyze just how good he's been in 2021 and 2022 and why he truly is an all-star caliber player. So with that being said, let's get into the analysis. So when it comes to the offensive side of the floor, Dejounte has completely broken out this season. He definitely is in the most improved player conversation. He probably won't end up winning it because Ja Morant will probably win it, but especially with his playmaking, he has had a huge leap this season. Last year he was only averaging 5.5 assists. This year he's taken that up to 9, and you really have to watch him play to see just how good of a playmaker he is. He has such a high IQ, and that's what the biggest improvement of his game has been this season, is his court vision, his IQ, his overall playmaking, and his ability to just find open teammates is really up there with some of the best playmakers in the NBA. I mean, there's really not a lot of times where Dejounte doesn't sniff out the best shot available on the floor. I mean, whether that's for himself or for a teammate, he will always find the best and highest percentage shot for his team to take in a particular possession, and that's the reason why the Spurs offense hasn't been as bad as many people thought it would be this year. With DeMar DeRozan going out, Dejounte was really that guy that had to step up and take that number one role, and he's done that better than anyone could have expected, really. I mean, like I mentioned, his playmaking's just been absolutely insane, and I would really put him as a top 10 playmaker in the NBA right now. I mean, he just, like I said, has such a high IQ, does a good job of creating his own shot when he needs to, and creating shots for others when he needs to. He really does play pass first, and really his last resort is creating a shot for himself, which he still does pretty well, and he has been definitely an effective scorer this year as well. When we talk about his playmaking alone and just look at some basic stats here, like I did mention, he is averaging just over 9 assists per game this season, which actually ranks him 4th in the entire NBA, which obviously is extremely impressive, especially for a guy who didn't really stand out as a fantastic passer last year. This is just absolutely insane that he's been able to bump it up to being 4th in the entire NBA in assists, only behind Chris Paul, James Harden, and Trae Young. And not to mention that he's doing this as well while only throwing away 2.5 turnovers per game, which gives him an assist to turnover ratio of about 3 to 7 to 1, which is really just absolutely insane. I mean, 2 to 1 is considered good, 3 to 1 is considered absolutely elite, and 4 to 1 is considered like Chris Paul level, and Dejounte is almost there. The fact that he's been able to do this on a Spurs team too, who doesn't really have exactly the greatest spacing or shooting surrounding him, it's been really impressive that he's been able to be this good of a playmaker, and really overall he just does anchor this offense and keep it together. Without Dejounte, the Spurs would be toast this year, especially on the offensive side of the floor. And then when we look at his scoring, he's really taken a leap here as well this year. He's done a really good job of operating in the mid-range area, and like I mentioned, he does play pass first, but when those open shots aren't there for his teammates, he can take matters into his own hands. He's really good at attacking the rim and getting baskets around there. He's great at both scoring and passing in transition, and really just overall getting into the paint, getting shots in there. He has a good floater, and he's not a great shooter, but he does use his handles at times to create his own shot in the mid-range area, and he's not a great three-point shooter, but it's not like they can just leave him completely open from 3 because he can still knock it down at times. So far this year, Dejounte's averaging about 19.5 points per game, which is a big improvement off of the 15.5 that he averaged last year, and his efficiency hasn't been great. It's been about the same as last year, shooting about 45% from the field and almost 32% from 3, and an overall 51% true shooting. Now, while these efficiency numbers don't look great, they're only slightly under average, and remember, most of the time when Dejounte's scoring, it's him creating his own shot off of the dribble. Because, like I said, he's really that pass-first player. He's the guy that runs the offense. He's the guy that everything really starts with him. And like I said, when he's trying to score, that's actually really a last resort for the team. So the fact that he's putting up these numbers as most of the time as a last resort is pretty impressive. And this year, he's creating his own shot pretty much 71% of the time that he's scoring. 71% of his baskets are considered unassisted. I mean, overall, when you watch Dejounte play and you're given the context that's necessary to describe his slightly inefficient numbers, it's really impressive what he's doing this season, and not even just the numbers that he's putting up when it comes to playmaking and scoring, but how mature of a player he is as well. Like, not turning the ball over a lot, really looking to play pass first, and only at 25 years old being able to be the number one option on this team, and not only that, but be the main playmaker that anchors the offense and is a leader on this team as well. This Spurs team is a very young team, and Dejounte has really taken a leadership role, which I've been really impressed with as well. I mean, he still has room for improvement. Like I mentioned, he's only 25 years old. He improved a lot this year. I think this is really going to happen again next year, to be honest, with just how good of a player he is, how he's always looking to get better, and his basketball IQ is so high. I think that if he's not able to squeak onto the All-Star team this year, he probably should be able to next year if he continues on this pace and this great level of basketball that he's playing. Now, something I haven't talked about yet is Dejounte's defense. I mean, this is what he was really known for throughout the first few years of his career, where he was establishing himself in the league. He wasn't even known as that good of an offensive player. Now he's really developed into that, but his defense has always been something that's really been at an all-star caliber level. I mean, he's really one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. For the Spurs this year, he's always taking on the task of guarding the other team's best player. We've really seen him guard some of the most elite and potent offensive point guards in the league, and he's really also one of the best off-ball defenders, if not probably the best. He has amazing hands. He's actually number one in the league in both steals and deflections per game, with 2 steals per game and 4 deflections per game. So the fact that he's been able to maintain the number one spot in both of those stats definitely says something. I mean, those stats really don't measure your overall defense accurately enough, but to say that Dejounte has good hands is a massive understatement. He's always looking to get those pokes, those deflections, those steals, and also not only that, but he's getting those and he's being able to translate that over to offense. It really transfers for him because he can get those steals and then run out in transitions and get easy buckets for himself and teammates in transition. And then just overall, with his ability to be a good on-ball defender, he can move his feet very well. He very rarely gets beat off of the dribble. He can defend in the post, especially against guards, and he's switchable as well. That's something that people don't really realize about Dejounte Murray because they're probably so focused on the other aspects of his defensive game, but he can effectively guard 1 through 4. I mean, he has great length and he's strong. He's stronger than you think for his size. He can defend in the post really well. He's a decent interior defender for a point guard. He uses that 6'5", 6'6"-ish height to his advantage. He plays the point guard position with that kind of height, which allows him some advantages really on both ends of the floor, and especially as an interior defender. I really say that his overall defense hasn't really been as dominant as it was in the last 2 years, but that's because he's so focused on doing so much offensively now as well. I mean, there's only so much a guy can do. He has so much energy out there, and the fact that he's been able to be, in my opinion, a a top 40 offensive player and a top 25 defensive player in the entire league just speaks to how insane of an overall competitor he has been, especially this season. Not to mention that he is one of, if not the best rebounding guards in the NBA as well. He's averaging 8.5 rebounds per game this year and almost 1.5 offensive rebounds per game, which for a guard, or especially a point guard, is very impressive, and again speaks to just how good of a competitor he is and how much he wants it and how he will fly in to get an offensive rebound even though that's not really his job to do. Pretty much every aspect of his game has been very good this season. His scoring has been good when he needs it to be. His playmaking has been one of the best in the league. His defense has continued to be dominant, and he makes it very hard on the other team's best player every night and does a great job of getting steals and deflections, #1 in the league in both of those like I mentioned. He's a great rebounder. Overall, this is a guy who's almost averaging a 20-point triple-double this year with great defense, and not a lot of people are talking about it. Once again, he probably won't get into the All-Star team this year because of just how many elite guards are in the Western Conference, but if one of those guys can't make it because of an injury or because of COVID, Dejounte definitely deserves to get that spot, and he has a lot of promise for the rest of his career going forward as well. That's all I've got for you guys in today's video. That's my analysis on Dejounte Murray and really how underrated he's been this season. Definitely be sure to leave your thoughts down below on Dejounte and his amazing season in 2021 and 2022, and I'll see you all next video.